Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Is yours on?
Yeah.
We appreciate everybody coming here for the weekly talk show that we have for the community. And our talk show is, as you know, titled Community Strength, Focus on Education. And the topic of education is a broad topic where a lot of information that can come from different industries, different walks of life, contribute to our education. So today we very appreciate having the presence of our regular weekly co-host of this show. And we have here Mr. Dennis King on my right. He is the CEO of Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for the last few decades, maybe two or three.
Who's counting?
It's a matter of experience and vast knowledge of the community in that area, and we value experience quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah. And secondly, we have our trustee of San Jose Evergreen Community College District, Karen Martinez. And thank you very much for hosting this program with me over the last 4 months already. And we are very appreciative of the educational background, leadership that you bring to our conversation. On the left, my left is Mr. Hong Cao, the director of the museum for the last 4 years, and as a volunteer there, as a way of giving back to the community after serving the Santa Clara City for over 27 years and retired from there. But the proudest information about him that I know of is he started out at Evergreen Valley College and went on to San Jose State University and made a big contribution to the city of Santa Clara as well as Santa Clara County, because I know that you were one of the key engineers for the Levi Stadium that they just recently have the Super Bowl, right? So with that, let's begin our conversation today. And I think our focus today is what make a stronger community. What make a stronger community? And when we say community, it goes different ranges, all the way from community at large, community of diverse populations, and community in a smaller, focus. So therefore, at this time, why don't I ask Trustee Karen Martinez to share with us some of your perspective about what is it that are necessary to make a community stronger.
I think one key thing is just putting all perceptions of one another to the side and focus on coming together in unity, because we're all right now facing so many different challenges, and I think that's one thing where we could start with. Just gas prices are surging, and it increases food costs and those things. And I'm very proud that at our colleges we have resources and supports where students can obtain free food that helps them. But all of these things impact the other, and I think that if we all come together and support each other, is very important. And also outside of the community college, I also started a food bank. Blanca Alvarado Food Bank, that continues to serve individuals to this day, and that is a way that we are supporting one another in needs that we all have. Food is definitely something that we all need at some point, right?
Is the food bank just for students and staff?
No, it is for the entire community.
And where is
that's at Blanca Alvarado Middle School. Which I founded. However, at the community college at San Jose City and Evergreen, we have, it's like a little market so that it helps you feel that, like if you're going into a regular grocery store, and sometimes, people feel, not very they're embarrassed of having to go through food bank lines, right? Because it's not something that you want to let everybody know.
For everybody, or just for students?
No, so the ones that it's at San Jose Evergreen is for students. Mm-hmm. The one that's at Blanco Grotto is for everybody. And
that's one bank that you can make withdrawals without making deposits.
That's correct. That is definitely
so
correct.
Speaking about food bank, I did stop by San Jose City College market, the food pantry there, and they have a small room, and it's located within the Student Services Center.
Right.
And within that, when you say Student Service Center, meaning that is where the admissions and records office is. People come there to register for classes, counselors where they consult for advice, and of course different student organizations offices for students to connect with. And of course other services like health services.
Right.
That's also based there at San Jose City College. And next to that hallway to the cafeteria is the pantry, the food center, where I talked to the manager, and she said that every day there's over 100 students come by there to access those food. Wow. And they have to be students who has the student ID card,
right?
And they can get that for free. Different items there as available. So it's just a wonderful service that any place should have.
Right.
San Jose
City College. Yeah.
And Evergreen as well.
Evergreen Valley College also has that food pantry there. Yes. Yeah. So if you can share that in Vietnamese and then Spanish.
Chúng tôi có những cái lời chào hỏi, đó là đón tiếp ông King hay là bà Karen. Ông King đó là cái người mà rất là kinh nghiệm ở trong cái thị trường phòng thương mại của người Mễ trong mấy thập niên vừa qua. Bà Karen bà là hiện giờ bà là trustee của Evergreen San Jose College, City College. Thì anh Sam Hồ anh có đặt cái vấn đề đó làm thế nào, những cái điểm nào mạnh mà trong vấn đề mà để đóng góp cho cái cộng đồng, mà nhất là trong cái giới mà trong cái trường học như bà làm việc á, thì bà cho biết là bởi hiện giờ đó trong những cái nơi đó đều có những cái thử thách, là tại vì bây giờ như chúng ta đều biết là cái giá cả nó cũng rất là gia tăng, giá cả như giá xăng dầu nhất nó lên rất là cao, nó do đó cái vấn đề những người đó dân cũng như là học sinh đó, sinh viên họ đều có phải đương đầu với những cái thử thách trong vấn đề ăn uống vấn đề kia. Thì ngay trong trường San Jose City College cũng có những cái hệ thống mà trợ giúp, cũng như ở bên ngoài cũng có cái food bank để lo cho đó. Riêng trong trường thì giúp cho những cái em, những sinh viên có thể có cái cách thức, có những cái khẩu phần, có những cái buổi ăn uống ở trong đó, là những cái đóng góp mà rất là thiết thực. Thì anh Sam cũng có nói là trong San Jose City College cũng có những cái giống là tương tự như vậy, để cho có những cái phần ăn có thể cung cấp cho cả trăm sinh viên mỗi ngày. Đó là những cái phần đóng góp để mà đương đầu với lại những cái crisis, những cái mà hiện tượng bây giờ nó đang bị là ảnh hưởng đến nền kinh tế và những khó khăn cho tất cả mọi người ở trong chúng ta.
Yes. So, Karen, if you don't mind, share that in Spanish.
Yes. Lo que ahorita estábamos hablando es sobre como el impacto que tenemos todos que en una comunidad. El ejemplo, lo que estaba diciendo yo, es como los precios de gasolina han subido tanto y con eso comida también. Pero en nuestro colegio del Community College del San Jose y de Evergreen, que allí tenemos recursos que es totalmente gratis para estudiantes, y cuando ellos van en el área donde se pueden registrar para clases, allí hay un lugar allí a donde es como una marqueta donde un estudiante puede entrar y recibir esos recursos de comida gratis, porque eso es realmente algo que en nuestra comunidad los ha impactado a todos nosotros, en nuestra comunidad. Y más que nada también estaba hablando sobre el banco de comida que yo empecé y todavía sigue hoy día, que es la cual que está en Blanca Alvarado. Yo soy la persona que empezó la escuela y la organización. Pero otra vez, para nomás repetir, es sobre cómo nos impacta la comunidad en total, y esto es una cosa que los impacta totalmente a todos. No hay diferencia dependiendo de nuestra raza, los impacta a todos.
May I ask you about one of the questions raised from because I have a lot of people I met concerning about with the new administration about immigration is how it affects to the student in your system, and you see any solution for the thing.
Right. I think that's a really great question. And I think immigration has impacted our community as a whole. And I think something that we've worked to do, and something that I've worked to bring forth as a policymaker, is about safety. And when our staff is aware of protocols of how to support our students, nothing's ever guaranteed, right? And I'm definitely, I say this often, one thing that we can guarantee: if we're born, we're going to die and pay taxes. That is a guarantee. However, there are some things that we can work to do that helps us support our students with their mental health, because that is very stressful. It's very stressful not knowing if you're going to get to school safe, and then once you get there, will there be immigration there for whatever reason. But something that our chancellor and our leadership has done extremely well, of course, because of ourselves being policymakers and putting those things forth, is about ensuring that students understand that when they're on campus, what supports that they have around that. Does it alleviate the anxiety and all of those things? No. But also, I will say is that in speaking with our students, I have heard that many of the professors have allowed time in the classroom to talk about those things, and I think that's helpful. That when you begin and have the ability to have a free space to have these conversations, that it allows you an opportunity to focus on what you're there for, which is their education. So I guess to answer your question completely is that yes, it's impacted, I'm sure, some, but I think what's more important is that what we've done to work to support our students to alleviate those concerns as much as we possibly can. Again, we can't confirm it at 100%, but I think we're doing what we can.
The reason I'm asking you because of course we know on the illegal immigrant, they should be worried about it.
Right.
But
right.
I know some of the people, the children of the immigrant,
Yes.
they thought they are here legally, but they don't know. Maybe they have some criminal, some mistake or some crime, in the past, and then right now it might affect the whole family. And
True.
then we not talking about, but the fear, the fear of the people, in the immigrant. For the policy chain, maybe affect to them, I think it's very, very important.
Right. And I think, though, our community as a whole is very resilient. And I will say that I believe what I have seen in the last 10 plus years now is a change with regards to education as a community as a whole. I think in the past, it's been, education hasn't always been at the forefront for us as Latinos, because we're more is that we have to go to work, we have to make money. But I think in the last 10 years, especially the work that I've worked to do to change that, because when students have more education, they don't have to work harder, they're working smarter. But yes, does that impact, students with their families? I would say yes. One student right now that's actually coming to mind is that their family is considering self-deporting, and that leaves all their children that that will be here, and one of which does attend one of our community colleges. But that to be said, I think there's a very misperception regarding our immigrant families, because of their status. They're less likely actually to do a crime because they're fearful of being deported. So I would say they're more law-abiding citizens, due to the fact of what they have to lose, and they sacrifice so much to get here, and have their families, that I think they do everything within their ability to abide by the laws. So it's unfortunate, I think in everything, right? There's a rotten apple, in every situation. But I would say that most is not the case.
Let's have a Spanish version of that, and then the Vietnamese version of that. This is a very important practical question that we need to address.
Es sobre inmigración, y lo que estábamos hablando es del impacto de la inmigración con nuestros estudiantes en nuestra comunidad, y eso lo impacta a todos. Y pues realmente no hay mucho que uno puede decir que es 100% confirmado que no le va a impactar a uno o una familia, pero como lo estaba diciendo, es que si lo que podemos garantizar es si uno nazca, también fallezca y paga taxes local. Eso es 100%. Pero ahora las cosas, lo que hemos hecho yo específicamente, siguiendo aparte de la mesa directiva, es ayudar a asegurar lo más que uno puede, que tenemos los arreglos y que nuestros empleados saben cómo asistir a nuestros estudiantes para que se puedan sentir más seguros, porque eso es lo único que uno puede hacer. Y también yo digo, dentro de estos 10 años que hemos visto nuestra mentalidad de uno latino, el enfoque más sobre su educación, y con eso es que queremos, yo voy a hablar de mí, que nuestros estudiantes no tienen que trabajar tan duro, y que pueden trabajar más con su mentalidad para que ellos puedan hacer otras cosas que le da el dinero necesario, pero no tienen que trabajar lo duro que hemos tenido que trabajar nosotros. Pero totalmente inmigración es algo que ha estado en la mente de todos de nosotros.
Yeah, Vietnamese and then
một cái câu hỏi mà thực ra đó, thì bây giờ nó cũng là cái vấn đề thời sự ở trong cộng đồng cũng như là trong những cái người dân tới đây đó, thì tôi có đặt câu hỏi với bà Karen là về cái vấn đề di trú. Thì cái chính phủ bây giờ cũng đã có những cái biện pháp rất là cứng rắn đối với những người di dân bất hợp pháp. Thì như vậy nó có trong cái vấn đề giáo dục, trong vấn đề trường học có ảnh hưởng hay là có những cái gì đã xảy ra trong đó không, và có những cái biện pháp nào của chính của trong nhà trường để mà có thể đương đầu có đối phó với những trường hợp như vậy đó, nhất về tâm lý. Thì bà cho hay là đúng, đây là cái vấn đề nó cũng gây ra những cái tranh cãi, những cái mà suy nghĩ cũng như là những cái trong trường học phải có những cái biện pháp như thế nào. Vì đối với những cái người mà di dân đó, thì bà cũng có nói rằng là trong các trường học thì cũng sẽ không có bảo đảm được cái gì về vấn đề di trú cho những cái người mà cư trú mà là bất hợp pháp hết. Tại vì cái vấn đề nếu mà cái người đó là di dân, nó sanh đẻ ở đây là người Mỹ á, thì vấn đề nó không thành vấn đề. Nhưng mà vấn đề người di trú thì nó cũng có những cái xáo trộn đó, và nhà trường cũng biết tìm mọi cách để mà có thể mà làm việc để giúp đỡ cho những cái trường hợp như vậy. Mà ngay cả trong những cái người giáo sư, những cái buổi giảng cũng có những người đã nói chuyện với những sinh viên để giải thích cũng như để giúp đỡ về vấn đề đó. Thì tôi cũng đặt cái vấn đề đó là thực sự ra đó mình cũng biết vấn đề di trú là cái vấn đề rất là khó để mà giải quyết, và những cái trường hợp mà những cái người mà bất hợp pháp bây giờ đó là cũng là một cái vấn nạn mà thực sự ra những con cái của người di dân đó thì có thể là nhiều khi đó họ cũng không biết rằng cha mẹ hay là gia đình đi qua đây như thế nào, mà cái cách thức như thế nào có hợp pháp theo luật pháp, nhưng mà khi chính sách mà của chính phủ đặt ra đó, thì những họ sinh viên nó đang đi học thì họ cũng có những cái nao núng vì những cái thay đổi của chính sách của chính quyền, nó có thay đổi bất cứ lúc nào, hoặc là họ không biết là trong tương lai đó chính sách sẽ đi về đâu. Thì bà nói đúng, những cái người mà đi qua đây đó là đã qua những cái quá trình đó là họ rất dài lâu mà rất là gian khổ để mà họ qua tới đây, và họ muốn đã có cuộc sống yên ổn ở tại đây. Thì bà nói rằng là ở nhà trường cũng đã có nhiều cái biện pháp để mà trấn an, để giúp đỡ những sinh viên, nhưng mà còn về cái chính sách của chính phủ thì là cái chính sách của chính phủ, đó là cái vấn đề mà mình có thể nói là nó thật sự là đáng giải.
Yeah, so what we're talking about today is in order for us to help make a better community, then we would need to be able to recognize what are the issues that are happening in the community, and some of the issues that we, as leaders in the community at different levels, we have a responsibility to ask the question: is that are our children or our students, do they have enough food to eat? Can they afford the gas price? Can they afford to live here? And if they don't, if they cannot, then what do we do to address that? And one of the ways we address that is that can we create, food banks, like you mentioned, the Blanco Alvarado Food Bank, where the people in the community can come by and receive food, vegetable, food, all staples, items, so forth, so that at least they can keep themselves healthy.
Yes.
And that's one thing that we can do. The other thing we can do is relating to a lot of them are worried about do they get deported, and until we are in a situation like that, or that we have a relative or a friend who's in that situation, then we can really empathize with the fear that they have to go through.
Right.
And we need to understand that and say, what can we do to protect these good people?
Right.
Because we are the community of immigrants. We all came here as immigrants from the 1600s until now. It never stopped, and we have to be able to watch out for the weaker brothers and sisters, and that's very biblical.
Right.
Because the Bible never tells us to watch out for the wealthy, watch out for the need of the haves, but it's always about watch out for the needs of the have-nots, and what can the have help provide for the have-nots.
Right.
And that's very biblical. It's what it's all about as community. And like when I travel every day, I drive on the streets that we drive, or I see the big buildings or the beautiful structures and beautiful environment that we see here. I did not create that. Somebody before me had that vision to make sure we have a clean environment, have a beautiful protection of environment, and start building roads and bridges for us to cross the oceans. And I sometimes I use public transportation, and light rail is some of the modes of transportation that I enjoy going, because it's number one, save me a lot of gas money. Number two, save me a lot of risk of driving, the accidents, and it give me a peace of mind to think while they drive, so that I can think of other things, and I appreciate that. But I didn't do anything to have it. Somebody else did it for me, and I think that brings us to someone that I just heard Mr. Dennis King share with us a name that I recognize, and that's just passed away. But the key question is that of his short life, what did he do that make a difference in the community? So maybe Mr. Dennis King can share with us that. And thank you, Ms. Karen Martinez, for sharing with us about your input about food and transportation, and also, immigration. So, Mr. Dennis King, if you can give us some of the thoughts that you have in terms of building a stronger community, regardless of what ethnic backgrounds or immigration backgrounds we came in to the United States, or were we born here. what are important for us to build that community?
I think you just opened up about 5 or 6 subjects.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he does really good at doing that.
so let's share at least a few observations and see where our conversation goes. But thank you for bringing up light rail, because you're absolutely right. For all of us, especially those that are new to this area, we kind of think that what's here was always here,
Right.
and not necessarily recognizing that the change that takes place because of the courage, the tenacity of individuals who have a vision to make the community stronger or better in one form or another,
Right.
and is willing to stand up to the forces that are lazy or have a different agenda, are just not open to change. One such person was my dear friend Rod Dearden, who was a county supervisor, and at the time, and I remember growing up here, you had to get around on your own. There were a few different bus stations, but bus businesses, but they rarely cooperated with one another. So trying to use public transit was a real challenge to figure out how do you get from where you are to where you want to go.
Right.
And more times than not, it just didn't happen. Now, many years ago, I mean, at the early 1900s, there was a light rail system here. There was a light rail that went all the way from what is now downtown to Allen Rock Park. And when they were working on the roads a few years ago to widen the road, they ran across a lot of old tracks that were left behind. So it showed that actually, again, 120 years ago, people realized that any community needs to have a way of allowing people to get from one place to another.
Right.
And that's kind of the essence of, certainly if I could call it the skeleton of a community, is the framework where people could know, what are the roots, what are the ways to do that. Rod Dearden saw the challenges with that. He teamed up with my former boss, Supervisor Dan McCorkadell, to go against the trend, look for public funding to create a light rail system, and succeeded in doing that. So that system wasn't always there. If there was any error in the plans way back when, was that the first corridors were really tended to be on the west side of the valley. And that's where a lot of the taxpayer dollars was coming from. So it's almost reasonable to think that if they're putting more of the financial cost on them, that they would get want to get the first benefits. However, the reality is that the people who need it the most and who use it the most are on the east side of our community.
Right.
And so only today are we seeing that VTA is serious in terms of extending public transportation in the eastern corridor, where it is clearly most needed. And so it's interesting that history finds a way. I mean, the joy of democracy is that when it works, it can be self-correcting. However, it requires a lot of patience for most of the community and a lot of courage for some of the community to understand the vision of what it is that we need to do and how we support each other, and be able to say, I'm for it, and be able to take the stand and the courage to against the naysayers that says, okay, it's a community benefit that we need to invest in ourselves and develop in our community. And because of people like Rod Dearden and Dan McCorkadell, they at least what I call the skeleton of our community for transportation, that we will be dealing with for generations to come.
True.
So I say thank you for bringing that up, Sam. And if there's
So Rod Dearden, Roddiridon.
Yes.
Rod Dearden is a very familiar name, and even the transit center hub in downtown which is the main transit
Is it
hub,
in Tiananmen Square?
where the
Yes.
Caltrain station is, right across from the center, on Santa Clara and Montgomery. That area there, right by the stadium, SAP Stadium in downtown, and that's where a lot of buses stop there. A lot of Caltrain, Amtrak, major transportation center, and the name of that station is named after Diridon Station. It's called Diridon Station. So that is the name of the person you're referring to,
Yes.
Rob Diridon?
Yes, and unfortunately for us in the community, he died this morning.
Is it his?
He died this morning.
Yes.
Do you know the cause of that or anything
Well, he had
related?
long-term illness.
Yeah.
Uh,
But he's one time his former councilman something. He's
County
County
supervisor.
supervisor.
County.
Yes. So
Yeah.
one of the lessons I think for all of us, but especially for those of us that are relatively new to the community, when you see a name of a building, you realize that that really represents the community recognition and respect for somebody, and that there's a real person behind that name.
Right.
So, when they talked about Google coming in, I don't think there's a Mr. Google, but
right.
but when you see the name around Diridon Station, we kind of said, oh well, that's just the name of a building or the train station. But when you realize that no, this was a real human being who lived among us, who got elected by us in a leadership position, and had the courage to say, we need to tax ourselves to benefit the whole community. And we need to invest in ourselves to create something that will benefit our community for generations to come.
So his main contribution, would you say the biggest contribution he's made in Santa Clara County is the transportation, the light rail?
Well, I would
System.
say that became, I think, his life mission. After he left the Board of Supervisors, he became, I'm not sure the title, but he became the general manager of the Minetta Transportation Institute, which was originally federal funding and other funding, based originally at San Jose State, to study transportation issues nationwide. But the hub was here in Santa Clara County, in the city of San Jose.
So was he the one that had the vision to have light rail system in San Jose?
He was the focal point for that.
Focal point.
So,
And when was that the beginning?
he had to, I would say, in the late 70s, 1970s.
In the 70s.
Yes.
Just
So-
when the Vietnamese community came in.
Yes.
Starting
Yeah.
Yes. So I think his vision was to see that San Jose needs to be bigger than it is.
Right.
It needs to be more welcoming, because you need to be able to have those transportation vehicles for people who either can't afford a car
Right.
or for whatever reasons don't drive.
Right.
It could be young people, seniors, but basically, again, the vehicle to kind of bring us together. And he had the courage so that when he finally did leave the Board of Supervisors, his colleagues on the board had to agree with him. But he led the way, and the others, including you mentioned Blanca Alvarado,
Right.
other people who were in leadership positions in the community recognized the need and agreed with him
Right.
and backed him up to, again, create the system that we have today. And even today, it's changing and expanding
It is.
to be more open, more available to people who live and work in the eastern portion of our community.
Right. It's just that it's a lot of red tape and it moves slower, and we're progressing much faster. And I think for us to figure out what that balance is, to cut the red tape, to be able to meet these needs quicker, because then we have to adapt to what we're currently in. And so I only share that because, with the current transportation system, what it is, unfortunately, I say is that many of us have purchased cars, our children have purchased vehicles. And so because they have to get somewhere quickly, which now, with gas being so high, and we need to have corridors that with this public transportation that gets us to where we need to go. And so that's why I believe wholeheartedly is that to ask our community what we need, how we need it, when we need it by, because it'll help us speed things along, and it could help us speed things along in the process. And I think that's something for us to think about, in the future and futuristically.
So one of the challenges of democracy, of democratic decision making, is that it is never over.
That's so true.
So our leaders can certainly help us in terms of pointing the way,
right?
But because we're all human, at some point the torch needs to get passed, and hopefully it needs to be embraced with a common vision and a common purpose.
It's very true.
And that means there's always room for corrections.
Right.
I think in talking about San Jose, I think there are some icons who really contribute to the transportation field.
Right.
Like Dorian, you will be talking, he passed away, and he's not one of Minnesota. He's later, will be at the U.S. representative, and he's a transportation secretary of Shopwood, he have a lot, and that's why, we have the airport, his name. And I think that's a very good story, Sam bring up. That means we can see some people we don't know, but they really have to build up this community and put everything, where we can enjoy and we can have a lot of luxury, thing right now.
Well, that also reminds us of Miss Karen Martinez here. You didn't know what I was thinking, but you mentioned about you have found some schools. I mean, like, I cannot even imagine myself founding one school, much less several schools. And the impact that what you did on that, it takes a lot of effort. It's not simple. And for you to get that done, the benefit, it goes to many current families, but also for future generations.
Right.
And it can spin off to many different other developments. And so I really appreciate hearing about Rod Diridan, because I know the name very well, but I have no clue, what significance does it have to do with that name? And until when we understand it, we appreciate so much more.
Exactly.
And the impact that his vision has made a big difference for not only the San Jose community, Santa Clara County, but also for the livelihood of so many families for generations
to come. Yep.
And that's the impact of what contributions means as we live a short life. He passed this morning, so of course our condolences go to his family and his loved ones. We lose a very great story, a great person in the community, but never lose that story that inspires us all.
There was a columnist in the Mercury News that was famous for news about town by the name of Lee Weimers. And he used to make a number of observations about community activities and personalities. He had described Rod Diridan back in the 70s and the 80s when he was facing so much opposition to that. And he still stood strong to be able to recommend it. And he made the observation that he said 100 years from now, so this was back in the, as I said, in the 1970s, 100 years from now, there'll be a statue for Rod Diridan, and it will be placed in exactly the same place that the community hung him.
Wow.
And what he was trying to be humorous about was noticing the opposition for change that exists in a community that needs to be faced with courage and tenacity, and that he had those qualities to be able to face the opposition and finally prevail to the betterment of the whole community. But it certainly took an emotional cost.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
And it was certainly difficult along the way.
Well, that's great. Going forward, I think that every program that we have in terms of the education here, I think it's always valuable for us to recognize, at least one figure in our community that we can relate with. because I find that to be extremely valuable. And I think that we today, if anything, we do this in honor of
Right.
Rod Diridan,
Yeah.
and we dedicate this program to his name. And our discussion about what contributions can we or the community can make into building a better community for all, and such as the transportation light rail.
It's huge.
It didn't benefit one particular population. It benefits everyone from all backgrounds, and that impact is wonderful. And I thank Trustee Karen Martinez for sharing with us some of the schools that you found. Maybe one day we can explore more into that. But that is something that is very valuable for us to know. And thank you for the work that you've been doing
Thank you.
in education there. And also, you mentioned earlier that the Blanco Alvarado food bank also you established that also. So that is amazing. You accomplished so much. Thank you. So anything else as we close?
I think I saw you bring the thing here. So
Let's hear you. Why don't you share in Spanish? Quickly summarize a little bit of what we just talked about, and then Vietnamese, and then final comments.
Estamos hablando ahorita sobre lo transporte y personas que en veces no sabemos cómo pasó algo y los beneficios que que tenemos por el sacrificio, lo quien ha hecho otros en el pasado. Y hoy en la mañana el señor Daradon, I'm not saying it properly, falleció. Y estábamos hablando de lo que el sacrificio que él hizo para nuestra comunidad en el respecto del transporte, y sin el liderazgo que él tuvo, porque me imagino que había muchas personas que no querían que él hablaba o hacía sobre el transporte y para crecerlo, pero él lo hizo como quiera, con mucho sacrificio, y nosotros podemos usarlo hoy día, y eso es algo para que nosotros podamos saber cómo podemos tener las cosas que tenemos, y es por el sacrificio que han hecho otros para nosotros y en el futuro.
Nãy giờ chúng tôi có nói chuyện về cái vấn đề mà bữa nay ông King ông có đề cập tới một vấn đề, cái sự ra đi của một cái nhân vật ở trong cộng đồng, cũng rất là một thành phần, là một người đã đóng góp thật nhiều trong cái lĩnh vực về giao thông, về phương tiện ở trong cái thành phố này, đó là cái ông Rob Doridan. Thực ra đó, với cá nhân tôi thì khi ông nói cái tên đó là tôi đã biết recognize tên đó, vì cái lúc tôi học graduate ở trên South State đó, tôi có học về cái vùng transportation, tôi cũng biết tên ông. Thì ông King ông có nói lại, để nhắc lại, đó là ông Rob Doridan này đó, ông là một cái người cũng là giám sát viên của quận hạt. Ông đã làm việc rất là tận lực để xây dựng được một cái hệ thống mà mình nói là cái light rail, hệ thống giao thông ở tại trong cái thành phố, là vì ông có một cái vision, ông có một cái nhìn trước, thấy một cái sự cần thiết của thành phố khi mà thành phố phát triển, mà khi mà làm ở trong cái lĩnh vực mà đó là một cái người quyết định về chính sách, nó cần phải cái sự ủng hộ của những đồng nghiệp đó, thì ông tranh đấu để làm được những cái việc như vậy, thì ông đã đóng góp rất nhiều, mà do đó mà chúng ta đã có những cái tiện nghi, giống như mà anh Sam Hồ này anh nói, khi mà đi qua những cái đường xá, những cái gì đó, chúng ta cũng cảm nhận được là cái sự cảm ơn của những người đã đóng góp trong cái vấn đề đó. Thì đó là một cái sự mất mát lớn của trong cái cộng đồng của chúng ta. Thì tôi cũng có đặt cái vấn đề với lại quý vị ở trong ban hội thảo này là San Jose của mình cũng có một vài người có thể nói là những cái icon đã đóng góp rất nhiều trong cái lĩnh vực giao thông. Thì ngoài cái ông Bob Doridan thì còn có cái ông Minata, thì chúng ta đã biết ông là một người gốc Việt bổn, mà ông đã làm ở trong thành phố, rồi sau đó ông lên ông làm dân biểu quốc hội, và sau đó ông đã có thời ông làm bộ trưởng về giao thông, thì ông đóng góp cũng rất nhiều cho những cái phương tiện giao thông về cái đường xá của tất cả trong cái thành phố của chúng ta khi cái thập niên 70, 80 đang phát triển đó. Đó là những cái điều mà ngày hôm nay cái tin mất mát vậy, thì chúng ta cũng cầu nguyện cho ông Doridan.
Yeah, thank you. So let's close whichever comments you still have. So,
I think to close in his name, because had he not had that vision and that sacrifice, we wouldn't even have the start. And I think that just goes a long way. And I can only hope and pray that his family is truly proud of the contribution that he's made, that will continue to grow and will only grow because he planted the seed.
Well, his wife Gloria is also, contributed an awful lot to this community, particularly in terms of talking about the value of internationalism, and that of course leads to the first topic that you brought up, is immigration. We could probably have several sessions on that.
Right.
But I am genuinely honored to have friends like Rod Dearden and others that have made a significant difference in our community.
Yes.
That we should never take them and their contributions for granted.
Agreed.
and you have anything to say?
No, that's okay.
Okay. So thank you so much, and we do certainly appreciate the different leadership levels in our community now, and those who have gone before us, and now we also the future ones. But we really to build a stronger community, we recognize that we benefit from the help and the leadership of someone else, and it's our role to be the benefit for those who are around us. And when we come with that attitude and that effort, I think we can build a better community that cut across all differences, and we stand together to build a stronger San Jose, stronger Santa Clara County. And so for closing, we thank all the people who have made the community a difference in your own capacity. Let's get together. Let's talk together, and you're welcome to be our guest anytime that you wish. Just contact me at 408-375-2768, 408-375-2768. And my name is Sam Ho. I work for San Jose Community College District, and we appreciate our conversation with you. So to close here, I want to make sure that we have three Spanish words that we can learn together: community, strength, and education. So community is what in Spanish?
Comunidad.
Comunidad. And strength.
Fuerza.
Forza.
Fuerza.
Forza.
Like a
Sound
force.
like force.
Exactly.
Forza. And education. Education.
Educación.
Okay, so those are three. Most of us can recognize that: comunidad, forza, and educación.
Yeah, I hope next time you're reading with the Spanish. Because you learned today already. You learned quick.
Thank you very much. Yes,
Very
thank
good.
you,
Yes.
Mr. Dennis King, Ms. Karen Martinez,
Thank you.
Mr. Hong Kao, and thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.